Hello and welcome back to the NBA DFS Slate Breakdown for February 22nd. We are back. We got a 10-game slate. All-Star break is over. We are on the last stretch of the NBA season. We only have a little bit over a month. Month and a half of the season left, but really a little over a month for real solid NBA DFS action. Now, before we get into it, I do want to bring your attention to all our promos right down there. ParlayPlay, Sleeper, Underdog Fantasy, and Chalkboard. All of them do a dollar for dollar match when you deposit. And with all of them, if you at least deposit at least $10, you do get 1 month free Alliance Star. Now, let's get into the slate itself. Let's get into the fun. We got 10 games. There are a couple later games. Those are not on either one of the slates. But as always, we will start on FanDuel. Point guards. Point guard ownership here. Keaton George coming in at the highest owned. Cody Martin right after that, and Colin Sexton. Now, Keaton George, I think 5.8K is just a little bit too cheap. He's been playing extremely well lately, but mainly he's been getting big time minutes. 29, 33, 41. And even coming off the bench, he was getting close to 30 minutes. So I like the spot for George. It's versus the Hornets. I like this game as a whole. I like a lot of guys in this game on both sides of the game. So Keaton George is definitely one of the people I will be getting a lot to, as well as Cody Martin on the other side. I did say I liked this game a lot. Cody Martin is in a good spot. My only issue with him is when he was not running the point, which that's not what he normally does. We haven't seen a ceiling game. Only game we saw a ceiling is when he was running point guard. He had the ball in his hands a lot more, and he had that 42-point game. Other than that, the ceiling is 30. So I do worry a little bit about where his price point is for what his ceiling is. But this matchup is very good. If there's a time that he can get to 30, it's definitely probably in a matchup with Jazz. There's a couple others in the league, but Jazz is one of their premier ones. Now we got Colin Sexton. All right, so Sexton with George playing decent minutes here. 26, 26, 34. The one thing with Sexton, with his higher ownership, we do have to understand that he is a guy where his minutes could fluctuate big time. George's could also, but George's price is much lower, so I don't care quite as much about the minute fluctuation with George. But Colin Sexton, very good per minute fantasy producer. He should get a lot of minutes in a very good matchup. So I like the spot for George quite a bit. I do worry slightly about minutes. They still do have Jordan Clarkson coming off the bench. Clarkson could get, 30 plus minutes, and with three guards, projected around 30 minutes, there's somebody that is going to end up suffering every night. Minute-wise, just because one of the other guys is playing well. Could be Sexton, could be Clarkson, could be George. We just don't know which one it is. Utah rotations are hard to figure out, but I don't mind going to Sexton. That fantasy per minute of 1.3 is just an elite number. It's really hard not to want to go there at 6.7K when we have a ceiling of, in the 50s at that price. So very intrigued there. Next, we got Darius Garland, 6.5K. Look, his price is way low right now. Yeah, he hasn't been playing great, but his minutes are finally there. He's finally off that minute restriction, and he's still fantasy point per minute guy. We saw in the beginning of the year when he was getting his run, he has that 40, 50 point upside, and he can absolutely do that again. He, off his minute restriction, had some rest, and Donovan Mitchell is questionable. Now, the one thing I have to say about that is Donovan Mitchell is questionable with an illness. He went through shoot-around, so I would expect Mitchell to play. So don't use that as a reason to play Garland. I like Garland in this spot. do not mind going with him whatsoever. Trey Mann. All right, Trey Mann's salary has gone up quickly. 4.6K, 6K, 6K, 6.6. And this is why. 1.15 fantasy per minute over his last 20 starts. Now, he's only had a few starts. So, as you can see, his last 5 starts and last 20 number or data is similar or the same. So, he has had less than 5 starts. He's had 3 this season. He had a couple last year also. But what I'm getting at here is he has been extremely productive. If you put his fantasy point per minute down by 1.1 or so, you're still going to get a lot of them. He's in a good matchup. I understand getting to some of them, and he's playing a lot of minutes. You know, we have him projected at 31, played 30, 34, 27. I would expect that 30 to 34 is where he's pretty much going to live the rest of the season, as long as LaMelo balls out and balls out once again, so I don't mind going there. Tyrese Maxey. No Joel Embiid. He's a 1.27 or 1.29 fantasy per minute player without Embiid and Melton on the court. He's not in the greatest of matchups, but look, he can torch anybody. He's extremely fast, can get out into transition, and he has a huge ceiling for 9.3K. If you can get me 60, 65, I'm very intrigued, especially when you're at low ownership and going to play a ton of minutes. So that floor is fairly high for him as well. Don't mind going there whatsoever. Now, over on to DraftKings. Point guard, high owned, Keaton George, Trey Mann, Darius Garland, all of which we talked about. I will throw in Nemhard. 4.4K is a little cheap for him. Aaron Naismith is out. He might pick up a couple extra minutes because of it. We have him at 31. 4.4K. Hard to get away from him in this spot versus Detroit. So definitely like that, as well as the other 3 high-owned guys that we talked about. And want to bring you up to our new team defense tool. We still have the matchup tool. The team defense just breaks it down a little bit different as far as a fantasy point per game, fantasy point per minute, rebounds, assists, all of that for every single matchup, you know, that you have. You could do all, or you could do it by position, and it's a real nice way to see how teams are giving up their fantasy points. So, you know, if you have a guy that's really good at getting steals and blocks, and the team is giving up a ton of steals and blocks, it's pretty interesting. So it is an interesting way to look at this. I have been using it and definitely like it. The nice thing too is you can really change the time frame you want. You can have it 2 games, 5 games, 10, 20, the entire season, whatever you want to fit what you were trying to look for and what you think is best to attack the slate. So, point guard. I like to go by fantasy point per minute because I feel like it gives you a better idea of somebody, you know, the matchup's worth. Luka Doncic in an absolute amazing matchup versus Phoenix. We have been talking about them a lot. One thing I do have to say is they have been better in the short term versus point guard. So it has been a very good matchup for a while, but they have toughened up versus point guard. With that being said, I do really like Luka. Keaton George, Ben Simmons. One thing with Simmons, likely still going to be limited minutes. Ben playing right around 24. I would keep it right around there. Booker's in a good spot. That Booker versus Doncic matchup will be fun. And then Tyrese Halliburton. All look good. On to shooting guard at FanDuel, Keaton George, Benedict Mathurin, Cody Martin, Colin Sexton. Like I said, for Pacers, Naismith is out. I think Benedict Martin, possibly Mathurin possibly could slide into the starting lineup. We have him projected at 31 minutes coming off the bench. Not really sure exactly what's going to break down here as far as their starting lineup, but Mathurin is a very interesting spot. Don't mind going there. even with the higher ownership, Cody Martin, Colin Sexton. And that is all I've liked for shooting guard here. On to DK. Mathurin, Sexton, RJ Barrett are the high-owned guys. RJ Barrett, he's not in the greatest spot. I am kind of surprised to see him this high-owned. He is a little cheap on DK. You can go there. Not going to talk anybody off him. He's been very good with the Raptors. I'm just not getting to a ton of him. Shooting guard. Jaden Ivey, Jalen Green, Cody Martin, Colin Sexton, all coming in pretty good for matchup-wise. I'm not going to talk you off any of them. They're all fine. Just fine. Small forward on FanDuel. Mathurin, Porter, Grady Dick, the 3 high-owned. Grady Dick, we have him at 21 minutes on the season. He's been playing about 15. But over the last 5, been playing 20 minutes. So that is why people are going there. He's only averaging 13.3 fantasy point per game over those 5. But with not a ton of value, he's popping up a little bit in optimizers. Thus, likely showing a little higher ownership than he really should be. I don't mind going to Porter Jr. His price is down. We know he has that ceiling. It's in a good matchup. I like it. Don't love it. KD's in a great matchup versus the Mavericks. Mavericks have been giving up a ton of points to the power forward. And KD's a good one. So don't mind going to KD. We know he has that 60, 70 point upside when he gets it rolling. And then Kyle Kuzma, just on the other side of that Denver matchup. He's going very low owned. He's been playing solid minutes, and he is their guy. If there's a chance the Nuggets stay in, or the Wizards stay in this game at all, it is likely going to be because Kyle Kuzma gets it going. So I like Kuzma. He's under 8K. He's in the 40s all the time. Has a solid ceiling. I definitely am using him as one of my pivots. And on to DraftKings, Mathurin, Barrett, and Herbert Jones. 4.6, Herbert Jones is pretty cheap, so I understand why people are going there. His minutes have been back up into the 30s from, a range where he's playing 24 to 28. And with the extra minutes, you got to kind of like it. Matchup tool-wise, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, Lauri Markkanen, Caruso, Oubre. I think Markkanen is pretty interesting. 8K, 8.1K, right around a 1.2 fantasy per minute guy, 1.26 over his last 20 starts. In a good matchup versus the Hornets. I think you could do a lot worse and go from him. The guy has been in the 50s a ton in the start of this new year, and 8.1K is just too cheap for a guy with that upside and not high owned, so definitely like that. Bridges is fine, Hart is fine, Caruso's fine. All of them could get there in this matchup without a doubt. Power forward, we got Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, John Collins, Zion Williamson is the high-owned guys. I think Collins is pretty interesting. He's been doing pretty good in the 40s, a decent amount, in the 30s regularly. We know he has a little bit of a ceiling. He's touched or almost got 50 a couple times, got 55 here. Don't hate going against him with the Hornets in a matchup that he could do really well. So I like the spot for good old JC. I don't absolutely love it, but definitely we'll have a bit of him. KD we like. Jared Allen I think is a bit interesting. So Mobley is back. Mobley is expected to, have his full go. But his prices just came down big time. 7.7K. Mobley does lower his ceiling quite a bit, but I think he's fine in this spot. I think he can definitely get to the Magic. And if Mitchell is out, which is not likely, it does give him a little bit of a bump up too. But at lower ownership, a guy with a big ceiling, Definitely a little bit intrigued there. And power forward on DK, Evan Mobley, 6.7K, Zion Williamson, Herbert Jones, all are fine. Don't mind any. And on to power forward, Precious Achiuwa. I do think Achiuwa is pretty interesting. 7.1K is like a bit high, but the guy is playing a ton of minutes, probably still in the 38 range, and in a decent matchup versus the 76ers, who aren't great versus power forward. So I am a little bit intrigued to go there. Miles Bridges, love the spot for Miles Bridges, love the spot for KD. Cameron Johnson, Aaron Gordon, just kind of meh for me. On to center, John Collins, Miles Turner, Nikola Jokic, Jared Allen. Collins we went over. Miles Turner, I think it's a very interesting spot for Turner. Detroit isn't great versus center, 27th in the league versus fantasy point scoring, so definitely pretty intrigued in the spot where we know Turner has a ceiling. My issue with Turner is always that he doesn't consistently get his minutes. Sometimes he's 31, sometimes he's 26, sometimes he's 24 or 28. So his minutes are just hard to predict. Maybe because Naismith's out, they're a little more solid, but that is an issue with him, especially when he is a little bit higher owned. Now, he's not that high owned today. He's just one of the higher owned centers. Center's pretty spread out ownership wise, so I don't mind going to him whatsoever. I'm going to get to a bit of him, just letting you know my worries with him. I do think there's a solid ceiling for him, though. Jared Allen went over. Nikola Jokic. I think Jokic is in an absolute smash spot. The issue, he's 12K. It's gonna be hard to get there. But look what he's done against them the last couple of years. 72, 63, 82, 63, 80. He's in a good spot to do very well. There is a very real ceiling chance in this game. And, if he goes for 80, you likely have to have him and just going to have to figure out some value, which there just isn't a whole lot of on this slate. And that is the only reason I don't have him liked, is because I find it hard to get to him right now. Jonas Valanciunas, got to bring this one up. All right. We have him at 21 minutes right now. Last two games, he played 18 and 15 minutes on the season, or over the last 20. He's averaging 22.5. The thing that I think is interesting, when there is a real big man on the other side, he tends to play 24 to 26 plus minutes. When it's a smaller team, that is when he hasn't been getting his minutes. Memphis, Washington, he didn't get those minutes. Portland, he got him. LA, he got him. Clippers, he didn't, but that was still without Zubac. So my thing here is I think this is a game that he will get his minutes. He is versus the Houston Rockets, who have Sengun, and against them so far this year, 32 minutes, 26 minutes, 29 minutes. All three 34 to 45 fantasy points. So I think it's a good spot to attack where nobody's going there. His ownership's going to be low. I think he gets his kind of normal run tonight. I don't think it's going to be one of those 15, 18-minute appearances. Now it could be, but at 1% ownership, I am absolutely willing to take a shot on a guy that can get you mid-40s. At 6.3K. So definitely intrigued by going there. Now on to DK, Jokic, 11.6K, Mobley, and Vucevic. All are fairly interesting. Wouldn't talk you off any of them. Grant Williams is interesting as far as some value, as is Marvin Bagley. 5.3K, a bit too cheap for Bagley in my eyes in his new role. He's had 5 starts for the Wizards, and he put up 47, 42, 7, only played 15 minutes, 36, and 35. So 4 of the 5 starts, he's been 30 plus. He's only 5.3. I'm absolutely willing to take some shots on him in this spot. I already have a bunch of different prop bets on him. Don't love him on FanDuel, but on Draftkings, I do think he's interesting. And into the center matchup, Jokic, Turner, Richards, Claxton, Zubac all look good. Zubac is an interesting one here because it's really hard to figure out what his minutes might be. On a fantasy per minute guy perspective, he's very good. He's in a decent matchup here. If he gets 28 minutes, he likely crushes. But he could get 20 to 24, and then he's going to kill you. So I think it's an interesting spot for Zubac, kind of like Joval. It is a low-owned spot where I think you could attack. Currently, I'm not attacking with him much there, but I might a little bit. I'm definitely intrigued by the possibilities. And that will do it for us, guys. The first post All-Star break NBA Slate Breakdown is done. I hope you guys have a great night. Good luck. Let's win some money. And please like, comment, and subscribe to the video. Adios, guys. Bye.